Hi friends, I'm back with a new video.
Structure
Okay,
of
today
human
we
eye and its function. What we need to know in this chapter is these are the few terminologies like defined sense organs like light, sound, touch. Also, we need to talk about the describe the function of each part of the eye, thus cornea, iris, lens, retina, optic nerves, and all that. Right? So these are the objectives of this chapter. So we need to know basically the function and the parts of the human eye. Okay, let's begin. This is human eye. Human eye, these are the various part of the human eye which we have here. To begin with, the first part of the human eye is cornea. So cornea acts as the eye's outermost layer. Its function is like a window that controls or focuses the entry of the light into the eye. So basically what is cornea? Cornea is the outermost layer, that is the first layer of the human eye, you can call it as. What does it do? It acts as the entry to the rays of light. So actually the rays of light enter through this cornea. Also, it has got second function to perform. Cornea also prevents your eyes from all foreign material. So this is the basic function of cornea. So cornea acts as the eye's outermost lens. Its function is like it acts as a window that controls and focuses the entry of light into the eye. Right, moving on to the next part is nothing but iris. So here, iris is a colored part of the eye, surrounds the pupil. It controls how much light enters the eye by changing the size of the pupil. Moving on next here, we can talk about is that is iris has got basically two functions to perform here. But what is iris? So you need to know that iris is a opaque muscular structure. It's a opaque muscular structure. It's opaque. It does not allow the light to pass, but it controls the amount of light. So it is a opaque muscular structure. It imparts number one. What is the function of iris? Is number one, it imparts a color to the eye. Second is it controls the amount of light entering to the eye. So basically, it controlling the amount of light entering to the eye through pupil. And this particular thing which is controlled by pupil is nothing but we are going to talk about, that's called adaptation. So third part of the human eye is nothing but called as pupil. What is pupil? Pupil, or a black dot at the center of the eye, is an opening through which the light actually enters. So the light is actually entering through your inside your eye through pupil. So what is pupil? Pupil is basically a pinpoint hole. Most of you don't know. It's a pin. The size of the pupil is pinpoint hole. It has got both eyes has got two pinpoint holes through which you see the entire world. Right? What happens is this pupil, this size, this pinpoint hole can elongate a bit and it can contract a bit. So it can elongate a bit and it can contract a bit. So pupil is a minute opening. How minute it is? It is a pinpoint hole, and this pinpoint hole can elongate a bit and can contract a bit. Okay, so who does this elongation and contraction of this? This is done by basically is iris. We told just now iris controls the amount of light entering to your eyes. So this iris is basically controlling your pupil. Suppose there is a dim light, and if there is a dim light, you can see here the pupil size is big. Okay, it is elongated. So when there is dim light, the pupil size is more. Okay, and what happens is when there is a more light or bright light, what happens? Look at the size of the pupil. The size of the pupil you can see here is less. So basically, when there is more light, the size of the pupil is small. When there is less light, the size of the pupil is big. Okay, so I can give you an example. For example, when you move into the cinema theater, there's a pitch dark. What happens is you can't see anything. Why? Because the size of the pupil is very small because you're coming from the bright light. Okay, you're coming from outside where a lot of light was there. So when you're entering, your size of the pupil is still small. So it is very difficult for you to collect all the light which is out there. So what happens is nothing but your pupil tries to elongate. So iris elongates it. It takes few seconds, and then after that you are able to see a bit inside that cinema theater. But what happens is after the movie gets over, you go out. So when you go out again, it's very difficult for you to focus inside and focus outside the world. Why? Because a lot of light is there, a lot of bright light is there, and when this light goes, it agitates your retina. So what happens is iris basically contracts your pupil. So how much light is needed to see things around is only going, and the extra light has been blocked by iris. So this is what. So response of the eye, what does it say? When there is a dim light. So basically when there is a dim light, the size of the pupil is big, and when there is more light, that is bright light, the size of the pupil is here is small, right? So this is all about the pupil. And as I told you that this response of the eye in dim and the bright light is called adaptation. This particular process of pupil dilating and contracting through iris is called as adaptation. So what is adaptation? The response of the eye in dim and the bright light is called as adaptation. Next part of the human eye is called as lens. Okay, so we are moving on to the next part is called as lens. So what is lens? Lens, we have our eyes has got a biconvex lens. It's a convex lens, and both the sides are curved, so that is why we call it as biconvex lens. It is, what is this lens made up of? Lens is made up of protein jelly like substance which is transparent in nature, which helps in the refraction and converging the rays of light when it passing through it. So basically what the lens do, is a transparent thing which is made up of protein jelly like substance. What does it do? It allows the light to refract and converges onto the retina. So there's a function of lens. Moving on to the next part is ciliary muscles. It's very important. These muscles, ciliary muscles, is used to change the shape of the lens in the eye to help with in the focusing. Now, how does it focus? Let's look at this. Look at this image here. This is the case when the object is kept at a normal distance. Now, when I say normal distance is nothing but least distance of distinction. So least distance of distinction is 25 centimeters. That time your eyes does not have to strain. 25 centimeters is the distance when eyes does not have to strain. It does not have to strain. So you can see that the image is forming onto the retina very clearly. The focus is adjusted its own, and it is forming onto the retina. But what happens is this is not the same when you look far and when you look close. So what happens is when you look nearby object. So when you're looking at the nearby objects, what happens is look at the size of the lens here. You look at the size of the lens. The lens is pressed from both the sides. So the ciliary muscles are nothing but here pressing the lens, and the lens is bulging out. So when the lens is bulging out, the focus is nearby, close. The rays converge very close to the lens. And when they're converging very close to the lens, you can see close by things clear. I repeat, what happens when you see the nearby objects? When we see nearby objects, these ciliary muscles, they press the lens from both the sides. So when they're pressing the lens bulges out. So lens has become small and bulging out. It's become thick. And in that case, when the rays of light is converging, the focus is meeting here. That's very close. And when there is a close focus, you can see close by things clearly. So basically, when the rays of light will pass through this bulging lens, they will meet at very close to the lens. So you can see close by things clearly. What happens when you see the distant object? When the object is very far, what happens to it? So look at this here lens again. Now, this time you look at this here lens is not that thick. It is thin and it is big. Now, when I'm talking about the big is thin and compared to the earlier lens, this is thin and the size is big. Why? What happens here is ciliary muscles stretch from both the sides. So it is pulling it from both the sides. So the size of this is thin and it is big. So what happens when the rays of light is going? The focus is at far off. So the focus, these convergence is happening far off. And when the convergence is happening far off, you can see the distance object clearly. So what happens here is the ciliary muscles are stretching the lens. when the ciliary muscle stretching the lens, so the lens has become thin and big in size, and when the rays of light is passing, it is passing and meeting far off distance, so distance, the object with the rays which is meeting, it is meeting far off, and your focus formed at quite far. So when it is forming quite far means you can see far off things clearly. So this is nothing but the how ciliary muscles function. So ciliary muscles functions like this, everybody. It is basically holding the lens with the help of, there is something called as here, when the lens are when the lens is held here, the ciliary muscles are holding this lens with the help of, there is something called as suspensory ligament. So these ciliary muscles are holding this lens with the help of ciliary, this suspensory ligament. These are, this you can see here. This is suspensory ligament, which is basically holding the lens. And when you want to see close by, the ciliary muscle presses it, so the size is bulging out and it's small. When you want to see far off, what happens is nothing but here, this size has become the size has become big and it has become thin. So basically the length has become big, and the size, when I'm talking about, has become very thin. So the rays converge at far off and you can see far off things clearly. Moving on to the next part of the human eye. Next part of the human eye is nothing but, here basically it is not a part, but then there is a liquid present inside your eyes, which is called as aqueous humor. So the aqueous humor plays an essential role in the health of your eye, as well as nourishing the cornea and the lens by supplying nutrition as well as amino acid to the glucose. So basically, what does it do? This aqueous humor is present in the front part of the human eye, which keeps your eyes moist all the time. So this moisture is very important. So basically, it is supplying the nourishment to your, it's nutrition to your eyes. Okay. So what happens is, sometimes you must have put your finger inside your eye by chance, and you must have seen that wetness, that wet part is that liquid which you can see on your fingertip is nothing but the aqueous humor. So aqueous humor is the one which keeps your eyes nutritious all the time by supplying amino acid and glucose. Moving on to the next part here, between the lens and the retina, there is a place. This place is nothing but filled with a liquid called vitreous humor. What is vitreous humor? Vitreous humor is a clear, colorless fluid that fills in space between the lens and the retina of your eye. 99% of it is consist of water, and the rest is a mixture of collagen and protein, salt and sugar. So it is again transparent, but not that very transparent. What does it do is, basically its function is to help the refraction of light. So when the rays of light is passing through the lens, it should fall onto the retina at the right place. This vitreous humor is helping in that. So that is the help of that is the function of vitreous humor. Moving on to the next part of the human eye is most important. Okay, is the retina. Retina act as a screen to your human eye. So what is retina? Retina is nothing but the light sensitive cells. It has got light sensitive cells, okay, which have got certain functions to perform. So basically it consists of two light sensitive cells, that is rod and cone. Okay, what does rod and cone cells do? So you can see here, in this figure you can see that here, these are rod shaped cells. You can shape cells you can see here, and you can see this blue, this red, this green. These are nothing but the cone shaped cells. So your retina consists of two photosensitive cells. One is rod and one is cone. What does rod do and what does cone do? So rod shaped cells are nothing but, they are responsible for the brightness which you see. How bright you see anything is a responsibility of the rod shaped cells. So how bright, how clear you see a particular thing is responsibility of the rod shaped cells. Whereas when I'm talking about the cone shaped cells, so C stand for cone and C stand for color. Remember this. C stand for cone, C stand for color. So this cone shaped cells are responsible for the color which you see around. So the various types of color which you see, this is responsibility of the cone shaped cells. So C stand for cone, C stand for color. So cone shaped cells are responsible for the color which you see. Now, I do not want to elaborate, but then yeah, I'll give you the little bit the knowledge of that. See, a few people or some people having less number of rod shaped cells, so they are having night blindness. Now, night blindness can cause due to two reasons. One is the less number of rod shaped cells, or the vitamin A deficiency. If vitamin A deficiency is there, then what can happen is nothing but it can be cured. Okay, you can have vitamin A tablets and you can cure this. But if you have rod shaped cells less, then what happens is nothing but this can create a night blindness, and this is not possible to cure. Okay, what happens to the cone shaped cells? Now there are few people, or there are some people who have less number of cone shaped cells. When there is less number of cone shaped cells, they are prone to called as color blind. So these people are nothing but called as color blind people, and the defect is called as color blindness. So how we have a night blindness? Similarly, in cone shaped cells deficiency can cause color blindness. So terminologies are very important. Rod shaped cells are if they are deficient or they are less, it can cause night blindness. And if the cone shaped cells are less, it can cause the color blindness. And the people who are having color blindness are called as color blind people. Now, such people, those who are having color blind, they are not advised to ride, okay, or drive, because they cannot see these colors. So it's very important. Most of the people are having problem seeing the green and the red color, so they're not advised to ride or drive. Okay, so that is very important. So they have got some do's and don'ts to be performed. Now, moving on to the next part of the human eye, we're talking about here is the next part is nothing but we talking about the optic nerves. Once the image is formed onto the retina and you can see the brightness, you can see the colors, and this image need to be interpreted. So now, as you already know that the lens is convex lens, so when the rays of light will meet at the retina, okay, it will form an image which is real and inverted. So you have an inverted image formed onto the retina. Now this image need to be interpreted. So do we see the things as inverted? No, we do not see the things as inverted. Then what happens? This image is need to be interpreted. So interpretation is done by brain. And who takes this image to the brain is the job of optic nerves. So around there are 76,000 optic nerves continuously working to take the image to the brain, and then brain interprets that what was the image, whether it was a good, bad, or should be seen next time or no. All that decision taken by brain. So these optic nerves take the image to the brain, and the brain is a masterpiece which interprets that. So as the image is real and inverted, when it is going to the brain is interpreting, it is inverting the image, and then you get to see the exact image how it's supposed to look like. So that is the function of optic nerves.
Hi friends, now we go on to the next part of the eye. The next part is called as a blind spot. In this area there are no photoreceptors, that is the rod cells or the cone cells present, and thus no image is detected in this area. This is the location on the retina where the optic nerve exits the back of the eye. So here you can see this is the blind spot, and this is exactly where the optic nerve is exiting the eye. So thus in this particular place there is no image detection. Now next we go on to the next part of the eye, which is called as the fovea. In this region of the retina, the sharpest vision is formed. It is a small depression, as you can see here. It is a small depression in the retina of the eye where the retinal cones are particularly concentrated. Now, what is the function of the cone cells? As explained earlier, they are responsible for the vision in bright light and colored vision. And since the cone cells are concentrated in this particular area, we get the sharpest vision, right? Now, next we go on to the next part, that is the choroid. Now, the choroid provides nourishment to the retina through blood vessels. It also provides major supply of oxygen and blood supply to the retina. Now, the last one, the sclera. The sclera is the protective covering for the eye. It is tough and fibrous by nature. So it protects the eye from serious damage. So it protects your eyeball, right? So here we finish with all the parts and functions of the human eye. Now in this particular slide, we have summarized all the functions for you, so you are clear with the structures as well as the functions of the human eye. I hope you like this particular video. Thank you for watching our video. Do like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much, friends.